Hello and welcome to Talking Good Games match preview of West Ham United against Burnley. Charlie's joined me tonight, and Gonzo is unavailable, so we've got Charlie. What's your thoughts on Burnley, Charlie?
I like them a lot, to be honest with you. I think, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Sean Dyche has done an excellent job. But now we've said that, I think they are the prototype for the idea of more than the sum of their parts. Like, you look at some of those players and you think, okay, fine, whatever. Some of them you'd say worst championship players, but some of them you go, yeah, fine, they're Premier League players, whatever. They're pushing Europe. Like, let's get real about it. They are pushing Europe for a reason. And that's because they are super good. Like, and I'm not talking about in terms of like Liverpool or whatever, but then again, Liverpool don't have, I don't know, name any of their players Jack Cork in midfield. Do you know what I mean? They're just a good team. And like, they're one of those teams who I think people underestimate consistently because they are Burnley. Like, sure, they don't have the biggest ground, they're in a difficult position given the fact they've got Manchester and Liverpool next to them, all of these other things. So people look at them and go, it's just Burnley, or it's just Burnley, they only play defensive football because they're Burnley or because of Sean Dyche. It's just not true. Like, they're good, and they have the ability to turn up and whap teams a lot better than us and just do bits constantly. I really, really like them, Gio.
Yeah, they're one of the best run clubs off the pitch in the Premier League. Certainly financially, they're financially stable, very clever with their money, don't spend loads of cash. In the Premier League, it's sort of seen that it's perceived that you have to spend lots of money if you want to stay in the Premier League, and Burnley have shown that actually you don't have to. And to be fair, almost every season you look at Burnley and you think they're overachieving. But at some point, you've got to just say, well, actually, that's their standard now. Top 10 is the standard of Burnley. That's Sean Dyche's Burnley for you. Top 10 is their aim, and why shouldn't it be? But I do still think, in regards to what they've got at their disposal in terms of finances, individual players and stuff, I do think they are overachieving. But that is what they do. Burnley overachieve. I think they're the most efficient team in the Premier League, to be honest with you. I think they're the most organised team in the Premier League, and one of the hardest to beat. They don't lose many games, they don't win many games, and when they do, it's normally by a goal, 2 at the most. I couldn't tell you last time they handed out an absolute thumping to someone, but they don't need to. There's nothing wrong with being efficient. And if there's other teams, including ourselves, who are a little bit more organised, like Burnley, you wouldn't necessarily have the season you had. But Charlie, there's been a lot of talk recently that Sean Dyche is at loggerheads with his board and could be leaving Burnley this summer. Would you expect then, we've just said how good Burnley are, is that because of Sean Dyche, or is it partly because of Sean Dyche? What I'm trying to say is, if he leaves this summer, how much in trouble would you expect them to be next season?
The reason I didn't want to say it at the beginning is because I semi-knew this question was going, and I do think the squad and everyone at the club deserve a lot more credit than I'm about to give them. But my lord, if that man leaves, they are in big, big trouble. Like, he's so... It's weird because he's one of those people a bit like Eddie Howe in a sense of whenever he's been somewhere else, it's not quite worked out for him. But at Burnley, it's just the right club, the right guy, and it's just they just work for each other. I think Sean Dyche, I don't want to say deserves a crack at the whip at a club that's bigger than Burnley, because I think that's kind of disrespectful to Burnley, but I would like to see what he could do with more money at his disposal, because like you say, they are a club who are limited by their position, their stadium, like just everything, right? And he has done such an outstanding job with them that if he were to leave, I would be very, very worried, because all of the players are built for him. In a similar way to Wenger or Ferguson or whoever, those players are built for Sean Dyche teams. They are built to be Sean Dyche. Now, the difference between a Wenger and a Ferguson and him is those players have all of the graft, all of the grit that maybe some of those players that the bigger teams didn't have. So you'd suspect if a new manager were to come in, they would still be giving that 100% grit and graft and everything else. So that might stop them from sliding down as spectacular as one might expect. But I don't think they would be fighting for Europe if it was not for Sean Dyche.
Yeah, I would worry for Burnley, to be honest with you. I would worry for Burnley without Sean Dyche, because another manager would come in, unless they recruited the most Sean Dyche person that's not Sean Dyche, that could come in and work with that squad and keep going. I think that would be very, very difficult. I think the temptation would be interesting to see how Burnley would replace him should they have to, because the temptation would be to try and get a manager in who can maybe play slightly prettier football or something. And that could backfire drastically, because A, the players don't have it. B, you tend to need flair players, which then needs you need a bit of money. You would then imagine one player in particular would become a transfer target for other clubs and then if they were to sell him, Burnley, that would then be disastrous as well.
Yeah.
I would fear for Burnley without Sean Dyche anyway. But I'd like to see what Sean Dyche could do at a bigger club. Could you take like Burnley and almost enhance it a little bit, do it on a grander scale and a bigger scale, the same types of players, but just perhaps better quality? Basically, 11. Can you have 11 Dwight McNeils in your team, and what could you achieve? Because that's what Sean Dyche would try and build somewhere else. He would try and build. He would stick to his blueprint, and why wouldn't he? But he might try and find a harder working player, but who does have that flair about him that he's maybe lacking in the Burnley team. Players you admire from Burnley, please, Mr. Walsh.
A lot of them. When you talk about admire, it is just a lot of them. You've mentioned one there, and I know he's going to be someone you mentioned, but McNeil, he's just a baller. Like, the kid, like, for someone his age, he doesn't look phased at all when he plays. And again, I think he goes under the radar just because he is at Burnley, but he's just really good. Like, I would quite happily have him in our team, like, at any point. I just think he's got it. And not only does he have it going forward, I think he gets, I don't know what his assist numbers are, you could probably know better than I do, but he's got a good amount of assists, but he also, like, does defensive work as well. Like, he fits perfectly for that team, but he's just got it. But apart from that, I think Chris Woods and Ashley Barnes are good in different ways. I think, again, Chris Woods maybe gets overlooked because he's this big sort of target man type guy, but he's very, very good at what he does. And Ashley Barnes, ignoring that purple patch he had when all of a sudden he became a world beater, like, he's still a very functional forward who does a lot of things very well. And then their centre-backs, Ben Mee and Tarkowski specifically, are both brilliant for me. I really, really like him. And again, I hate saying it because it's Burnley, because, like, I don't want to just pen them in as his defensive side, but those centre backs are, when they're in form together, I think they are probably one of the better centre back partnerships out of the top 6 quite easily.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Their keeper, Nick Pope's my favourite goalkeeper in the league, to be honest with you. Him and Dean Henderson are my 2 favourites, but I really like Nick Pope. I think he's just one of the best in the league, to be honest with you. He is appreciated. He's not underrated, because people do rate him, but I think he's underappreciated, if that makes sense. I think people know he's good, but he doesn't quite get all the plaudits as what Dean Henderson gets, but I don't think there's much between them, to be honest with you. I think Pope's probably the better goalkeeper at the two. But I do think he's just superb. I think Dwight McNeil's just a fantastic player. Whenever you watch him, he can beat his man, but his deliveries are just brilliant. It's all very well having Chris Wood and Barnes up front who can make things happen and get on the end of crosses and stuff, but you need someone to put a decent cross in. There's no point having the best header of the ball in there if you can't get the ball to his head. But McNeil can do that. I've seen him in the last few weeks. He's played in various positions because of Burnley's just lack of squad depth, which we'll get on to in a second, but he's doing it all. He's playing on the right, he's playing in like in the number 10 role, he plays on the left, like you said, he grafts and he grafts and he grafts. He's just he won't be at Burnley in a couple of years' time, and I know that's probably offensive to Burnley fans, but it's a bit like us with Declan Rice. They must watch him every week and think, how long have we got this guy for? How can we get another year out of him, 2 years out of him? Is that it? Because he's just superb. And also Jay Rodriguez, he's taken advantage of Barnes and Wood being injured. He's someone that was in unreal form. Remember when he was at Southampton? He was on the verge of, I think he might have got an England call before he had that big injury. And then he's come back and he's never quite looked the same, but since post-lockdown I think he's been one of the better strikers in the Premier League, to be honest with you. When I watched Burnley, he's been busy, he's been getting shots away. But Burnley, Charlie, have got a lot of injuries for this game. They've already got a small squad. Dyche isn't even naming 7, and he's not even naming 9 subs at the minute. 2 of his subs are goalkeepers, so he's not making any subs. He's got Lowton's out, Mee's out for the season, Jack Cork's out for the season. Chris Wood only just come back at weekend. Ashley Barnes in light training. I mean, just quickly, this has got to be the best time to play Burnley, surely.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was the last match or the one before that. In fact, it wasn't the Sheffield United, it was the one before that. I looked at their subs bench and the numbers were just brilliant. It was like 27, 45, 85, and I was like, this is a subs bench I can get involved with. Now's the right time. The thing is, though, even with all of those things you've seen since they've come back outside of the Man City game, obviously, they're still doing their thing. They're still getting those 1-0 wins. They're still grinding it out. But you would hope that this would be the best time, because there's a reason why Sean Dyche has done less substitutions than Moyes, and is the only one who's done less substitution than Moyes. It's because that squad is very small, because you have those 15 players or whatever it is, and then outside of that it's youth academy prospects and people you've never really heard of. So if we can put the pressure on them. And let's say we get an early goal, as we have in other games, I don't see them having a huge amount of options on the bench to come on and change it, and that's a huge advantage for us.
That's fair. West Ham's team news is Anderson's not available. I think he's going to miss the next 2 games at least. Anyway, we're hoping to get him back for the Watford game. Sebastian Aller is iffy. He had a late fitness test today, so we're unsure if he's in the squad or not. But for the hypothetical situation of the preview, we're going to assume that he is half fit, Charlie. You can either have him, but he's not playing for 90 minutes. You can have him on the bench kind of thing. But would you name an unchanged 11 for the 3rd game in a row, or would you like to see some changes from what's facing Newcastle and Chelsea?
It would probably be unchanged. I want to change things. I'd like to see Wilshere get more game time, for example. I don't want to see either Fornals or Lanzini out on the left, but we're just sort of scrapped for options in that area. It's kind of the word, like the lesser of the evils at that point. You could make an argument for moving Bowen over there or putting Yama there and then starting Yama on the right or whatever, but I like having someone on the bench who can actually come on and change things. And again, I don't want to see Antonio starting up front, although I think actually, I said this on the watch along, Gio, you'd be shocked. I thought Antonio was our best player the other day, and I think, oh my god, he's actually doing things strikers should do. Not hitting the target per se, but like laying it off and then running into a striker's position and being in the right place at the right time. All this, I was like, oh, hello, there's a footballer all of a sudden. But if he's half fit, then I'm still not risking him, because realistically he needs to be fit for the entire time, and so he would maybe come on for Antonio to alleviate him because he's just played too much. So it's kind of we don't have many choices for that, so it'd probably start the exact same as we went before, which is annoying, but
Yeah, I would as well. But the only frustration is I want to see Yarmolenko start. I don't know where I would squeeze him in though, because I think he's obviously come on against Chelsea and won the game, but against Newcastle I thought he'd come on, he looked sharp, he looked creative, he had that shot from distance. I thought this is what we need, someone that's trying to win the game. He's just got that winning mentality installed in him. And we're coming up against Burnley, who will sit deep. They will sit deep and say, you have the ball, like what are you going to do with it, let's see what you've got. We're going to have 2 banks of 4 here, good luck. And I don't have enough faith in us breaking them down in open play. So I do think we're going to need someone that's going to step up and do something. Someone that's going to hit an effort from long range, or someone that's going to just be extra creative on the pitch, really. Someone that's going to try that 20-yard dink over the defence or something. And Yarmolenko's the guy that I've got most faith in doing both of those things. So for that, I want him on the pitch. I want to see him starting. But I also think it's important to reward players with good form. You're not necessarily punishing anyone. But the one thing that we've got that Burnley don't have is the ability to rotate for this match. Burnley just can't do it. Sean Dyche is lucky if he's got 11 fit senior players at this going rate. We've got plenty of them. So I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of fresh legs out there. So if we do win the game, if it comes to a battle of like fatigue and fitness for the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, we win it. We win the game just because we're fresher, we've rotated the squad, we've used the squad a little bit more than what Dyche can do. Because I never watched Burnley's game at the weekend, but the one before that, he made 1 sub and it was forced upon him. Someone got injured, Cork got injured, he took long on, and he shuffled his pack about, but he didn't do any other subs. And I think it was a message to his board saying, I've got no players, you're going to have to spend big in the summer, or you're going to have to spend money in the summer. But he can afford to do that. Dyche can afford to risk points in order to make a point to his board because of where they are in the league. We can, and I just think that we need to be a little bit more savvy. I don't want to see Noble start. I don't. I really don't want to see it. I thought he slowed us down drastically on Sunday when he came on. I think he was the wrong person to bring on. So for Yarmolenko, I don't know where to play him, Charlie. I think I don't know who to drop either, because while Fornals and Lanzini haven't been brilliant, I don't think they've been bad, and I think they're growing into form, if you like. So I think if you remove one, you sort of dent them a little bit. So I don't know. I'd be tempted to maybe take Lanzini out, despite what I've said, put Yarmolenko up front, and then put Antonio on the left. And I was just encourage Yarmolenko to drop deep and let Bowen and Antonio running behind him or whatever. But we need to overload this Burnley defence. Obviously, Watford won earlier. Not ideal, but not the end of the world. But if we win tomorrow night, Charlie, are you sort of tasting survival?
Yes. Yeah. It's monumental, and I think the confidence would be huge going into the games against those teams around us. Because you look at Norwich and you say, okay, well, they can't really buy a win to save their lives, so we'll probably beat them, right? But the Watford and the Villa games are the ones where I'm like super eyeing. So if we got a win here going into the Watford game, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, we should have a bit of confidence, a bit about us, because Burnley are a difficult team, and Moyes will let them know that. If there's one thing he's good at, it's being negative and dour. And so if there's one thing I'm 100% confident he's going to do in that dressing room is go, right, this is a difficult game. And so if we go into that and actually get a result from that, that should be a monumental boost for us. And it would mean, we would be 3 points ahead of Watford at that point. And I'm just going, okay. And then all we need really is a win against Watford and we're safe. We're close. But given the run of fixtures we've got, to be honest with you, if we go down, we'll deserve it because we've got the best run of fixtures out of everyone. We just should be staying up.
If for those who don't know, if we beat Norwich at the weekend, we relegate Norwich at the weekend, and they're just clinging on for dear life. So they're not quite down yet, but West Ham can be the ones that boots them down to the Championship. I think 4 points in the next 2 games, Charlie. I'm not overly fussed about how we do. I'd rather get 3 points tomorrow, sure. So then it's a bit more relaxed. But I think 4 points in the next 2, and to be honest with you, even if we lost the last 3, I think we might still just scrape it. But I want the pressure off for the Villa game. I don't want to have to go to Villa, and I don't want to go to Old Trafford needing anything. So the next 3, which is Burnley at home, Norwich away, Watford at home. I think 5 would be enough, but 6 would be lovely to just really make us safe and secure there. Are you optimistic for this one?
More so. I'm still not convinced by David Moyes being a manager who attempts to win games. I'm still not convinced by it, despite our last couple of performances. But I feel a little bit more... If it was maybe any other team, I'd be like, okay, we can maybe go and do something here. It's just the fact that they are such a well-drilled team and such a well-organised team that's making me a bit nervous before it. But we, like you say, you look at someone like Yarmolenko who can take shots from range. We're starting to put teams, like I felt against Newcastle, for example, if we went a bit more forward, we possibly could have put them to the sword a bit. They weren't super on it, and we weren't super on it. So there's something in the back of my mind that wasn't there before. And it's not confidence in David Moyes, but it's like, okay, maybe.
I'm pretty optimistic, Charlie. I think this is the right time to play Burnley. I think, like I said, they can't rotate their squad. There's not much options on the bench, so in-game changing is going to be very difficult for Dyche to do. We can probably name 9 at the worst of Burnley starting 11 and where they're going to play and how they're going to play. This is the easiest time. This is why I can never forgive a manager for not being prepared for a team like Burnley.
Yeah.
There's no surprises coming. They're going to play 4-4-2. They're going to have Taylor, Long, Tarkowski and Bardsley as their back 4. They're going to have Pope in goal. They're going to have Westwood and Brownhill in centre midfield. Probably have Eric Peters and McNeil out on the wides. Then up front, he might start Chris Wood and Viadra or Rodriguez. You've got 2 of them. I am pretty confident we will know Burnley's team. So there's no excuses for us not to be ready for what Burnley are going to do. Okay, it's as simple as that. Like Newcastle was very difficult to prepare for. They had lots of options. Bruce has been rotating, so you thought, oh, okay, I can forgive that. But for Burnley, no chance. And the same for when you play West Ham, really. You know what we're going to be doing now. We know we're set on 4-2-3-1. You know our back 4. You know Rice and Souček's going to be in there. But it works both ways. And I've been encouraged with what I've seen in the last 2 games, Charlie. And to be fair, last 3 games, I'm going to include the Spurs one in this because I was relatively content with what I saw up until substitution time, but I thought the style was there, thought the effort was there, and I've seen that throughout. So I'm feeling good, Mr. Walsh. I'm feeling good. I don't think we're going to get beat. I think our defence hasn't been too bad. I know they've been getting really battered recently on social media the last for Sunday, but I think it's more just individual lapses of concentration which has caused it rather than anything drastically wrong with the whole back 4. And I think if we can solve that, and Burnley are not going to throw the kitchen sink at us. They're not going to come out guns blazing. They'll commit 3 or 4 players per attack forward, and they're going to try and go for the set pieces. But as long as we're switched on at the set pieces and we know what they're doing so we can counter it. Every game so far since post-lockdown, Charlie, we've had to score 2 to get a point. I don't think we're going to have to do that tomorrow night. I don't think we're going to concede 2. So with all that said and done, can I get your final words if you have any? Followed by just score prediction, please.
I agree with you. I don't think we're going to need to score 2 to get a point. But for all the things you've just mentioned of why Like, whenever it comes to these situations, the comments get a bit annoyed at me because I usually pick a loss. And spoilers, I'm going to pick that again. But I think what the reason is, the fact that they don't throw the kitchen sink at us is what worries me the most, because we don't tend to be a team who can break teams down very well. And Burnley are a team you have to break down. You can't counter against them in this beautiful, fast roaming fashion like we did against Newcastle at one point. We can't really do that because they're so well drilled and they do what they need to do effectively enough, right? And that's where I get a bit concerned. When it comes down to it, I usually go with my head when it comes to predictions, and I'm going to do it again. My heart is going, ooh, maybe, but my head is saying 1-0 Burnley, Tarkowski header from a set piece. I can see it, but it's just, I think it's going to happen.
Oh, Charlie. Well, luckily for you, Mr. Walsh, I predicted the correct score on Sunday afternoon.
All right, you predict one score once, and all of a sudden...
the Spurs one as well, thank you.
I wasn't watching that.
2 out of 4. And the worst thing is, before the Chelsea one, I was saying I had a good feeling, but to be fair, Charlie, I just bottled saying West Ham win. I just bottled it. I should have said West Ham win, but I just bottled it. But we've looked good for set pieces, though. I know you're saying Burnley will be hard to break down. So that tends to mean, well, you're going to have to rely on set pieces. That's a natural thing if you can't do them from open play. We've looked good from them. Bowen's been delivering good set pieces. Souček and Rice have been looking dangerous. I like the way against Newcastle for Souček's goal. I like the way that Rice went back post and Souček went front post.
Yeah.
But they don't always do that, so they're mixed up a little bit. The point is, we've got a good header going front, a good going back. Without watching it back, I can only assume Ogbonna, Diop and Antonio were in the middle of the box somewhere. So those 5 in the box is not a bad 5 players to be aiming for with your set pieces. And if we've got movement in there, and we've scored from corners for the last 2 games now, that's something that we can take as a positive. I'll tell you what I don't want to see. I will add this, because I didn't do the review or something. This is the only point I would have made. I do not want to see Mikel Antonio going to take a long throw and throwing it short. There's nothing more that drives me potty than watching stuff like this, especially when Diop comes up. So Diop travels 50 yards up, goes and stands at the front post area, long throws getting ready. You're thinking, okay, let's go. It's not the prettiest thing, but it's effective when used right. So here we go. Then he throws it short to Creswell, who then loses the ball. Suddenly Newcastle have the ball, running out our half, and our centre-backs in their 6-yard box. I do not... If you're going to do a long throw, do it. Do not, none of this changing your mind, because they didn't even do it once. They've done it 2 or 3 times. You threw it short, and I thought, stop this. What's the point in this? I hate it. It's really. I was ready to shake the TV, Charlie. It was really annoying me that much. Anyway, none of that. So my score prediction, as you're eagerly anticipating, no one is 1-0 West Ham. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. I think David Moyes is going to do a Sean Dyche on Sean Dyche.
Okay.
Tactical masterclass.
I think if you're saying David Moyes is going to do anything, you're maybe being a bit optimistic, but fair.
Look, it's dinosaur versus dinosaur. Not quite, you know what I mean. It'll be a good game. You can join us tomorrow night. We've got loads of content, loads of videos coming up tomorrow night. You know the score by now, so pop along. It's a 6 o'clock kickoff, very early. I'm going to have to run home from work. So tomorrow 5 o'clock, just before 5 o'clock, we'll be live on the channel, so come along at 5 o'clock. And I'm not going to tell you what to do now. You know my rhythm. I'm going to let someone else do it for you. We've got a little bit of a guest coming up, don't we, Charlie? Are you ready for the guest, Charlie?
Listen, I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Guest, let's be having you.
Hello guys, how you doing? It's me, Jack, mate. You've just finished watching probably one of the best videos on YouTube. So why not take a moment to consider subscribing? And if you haven't already, hit the like button and turn the notification bell on. Apparently it helps. I don't know how.